Welcome to The Explainer. So, big news. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, or USCIS, is completely flipping the script on how it accepts payments. If you're planning on filing pretty much any application, you absolutely have to know about these changes. Today, we're going to break down exactly what's new, what you need to do, and most importantly, how to keep your application from getting rejected over a simple payment mistake. All right, so to really get this, let's look at the why behind it all. This quote from a White House executive order really spells it out. For a long time, things like checks and money orders have been the standard, but let's be honest, they're slow, they cost more to process, and they're just not that secure. The government is pushing hard for modernization, and this is a huge step in that direction. And when we talk about security, the risk isn't just theoretical. I mean, get this. A paper check sent to the government is 16 times more likely to be lost, stolen, or messed with than an electronic payment. 16 times. That is a massive, massive vulnerability that USCIS is trying to plug, and fast. Now, that 16x risk factor becomes a gigantic problem when you look at this chart. Up until now, over 90%, you heard that right, 90% of all fees coming into USCIS were paid using those old-school paper methods. We're talking millions and millions of payments, each one carrying that much higher risk of something going wrong. You can see why they felt a change was needed, right? So, to tackle all these problems, the costs, the delays, the fraud, USCIS isn't just, gently encouraging people to pay online. Nope, they are mandating it. This is a complete overhaul, a fundamental shift away from piles of paper to a modern, digital-first system.
And this isn't some far-off plan, it's happening right now. You can see the whole thing started rolling in March, the official policy dropped in August, but the one date you really need to circle on your calendar, the one that matters most, is October 28th, 2025. That is the hard deadline.
So let's be crystal clear about what that means. After October 28th, if you mail in an application with a check or a money order, it's getting sent right back to you. It will be rejected. The era of paper payments is officially over, except for a few very specific cases, which, don't worry, we're going to get to in a minute. Okay, so if checks and money orders are out, how are you actually supposed to pay your fees? Let's break down your new options because this is where you need to pay close attention. For anyone mailing in their application, you've now got two main ways to pay. The first is Form G1450, which you might already know. It's for authorizing a payment with a credit card, a debit card, or even a prepaid card. The brand new player here is Form G1650. This one lets you do a direct bank transfer, what's often called an ACH payment. And here's the key difference. For the G1650, you must have a U.S. bank account. Now, anytime there's a new system, there are new ways for things to go wrong. And trust me, messing up the payment is one of the quickest tickets to getting your entire application rejected. So let's walk through the most common pitfalls and how you can sidestep them. This really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? A tiny mistake on a payment form can get your whole package tossed out. That means you lose time, you lose your place in line, and you could lose hundreds or thousands of dollars in fees. So what's the secret to avoiding all that? It's one word: precision. Let's look at exactly what you need to get right. All right, if you're going with a credit card on Form G1450, here is your do not mess this up list. One form per application, no exceptions. You can't try to split the payment between a card and a bank transfer. And it sounds obvious, but the cardholder's name, the full card number, the expiration date, and the exact fee amount all have to be absolutely perfect. One typo and the whole thing gets rejected. And the exact same level of detail is required for the new bank transfer form, the G1650. You've got to clearly mark if the account is personal or business, and whether it's checking or savings. And those routing and account numbers, they have to be flawless. You get 0 points for being almost right here. Double, even triple check everything. Okay, here's a really important pro tip for anyone using that new bank transfer option. A lot of bank accounts, especially business accounts, have a security feature called a debit block. If that's turned on, the payment from USCIS will automatically fail. So what you have to do is call your bank before you mail your application. You'll need to ask them to pre-authorize payments from USCIS, and you can find the specific codes you need to give them right in the form's instructions. Don't skip this step. It's also super important to know what happens if a payment does fail. With a credit or debit card, USCIS will try to process it exactly one time. If it's declined for any reason, that's it. You don't get a second chance. The application is rejected. With a bank transfer, you get a little bit of a safety net.
If it fails because of insufficient funds, they'll actually try to run it a second time. But for any other error, it also fails right away.
So, all this talk about electronic payments probably has some of you wondering, what if I just can't do that? What if I don't have a bank account or a credit card? Well, USCIS thought about that, and they've created a very specific, narrow pathway for exemptions.
Yeah, this is a very real situation for a number of people. The whole point of this new system isn't to create a barrier. So if you genuinely don't have access to electronic payments, there is a formal process you can follow to ask for permission to use a good old-fashioned check or money order. And that process involves, you guessed it, another brand new form. This one is the G1651. You can think of this form as your official request to bypass the electronic payment rule. You have to fill it out and explain exactly why you need an exemption.
Now, who actually qualifies? Well, the reasons are pretty specific. You have to be able to show that you don't have access to a bank or that paying electronically would cause what they call an undue hardship, which you'll need to explain. There are also a few other rare cases, like for national security reasons. The key takeaway here is that this isn't a loophole for convenience. It's a real accommodation for people with a genuine need. The process itself is pretty simple, but you have to do it right. You fill out and sign the G1651 exemption request form, and then you include it in the same mailing package as your main application and your paper payment. All three pieces, the application, the exemption form, and the check, have to be sent in together. Okay, wow, that was a lot. Let's do a super quick recap of the absolute must-knows. First, the deadline, October 28th, 2025. Mark it down. Second, know your forms, G1450 for cards, G1650 for U.S. bank transfers. Third, the details. Become obsessed with checking every single number and letter on those forms. And finally, the exemption. Do not send a paper payment unless it is attached to a properly filled out G1651.
You know, this huge move by USCIS really isn't happening in a bubble. It's part of a much, much bigger trend across the entire government to go digital and modernize. And it kind of leaves you with a big question to think about. Are we witnessing the beginning of the end for cash and checks when it comes to any and all of our official business with the government? Something to chew on.